We are back at it again. You see my friend is Hayes Sandwich, but they call me. Let's get straight into it. How Motown used and portrayed the Jackson 5. I'm very intrigued to see how this was put together. Shout out to the channel The Golden Age. With that being said, let's go.
We wanted to write. We wanted to produce ourselves. And our contract in Motown didn't let us do that.
With Columbia Records, we want to sell twice as many records. We want to do the things that we've dreamed of.
They were America's perfect family band. 5 brothers from Gary, Indiana, taking the world by storm, selling millions of records and revolutionizing music. But behind the glitz, the screams, and the fame, there was betrayal. The Jackson 5 were trapped in one of the worst record deals in history.
Really?
And the people who promised to protect them, they were the ones pulling the strings.
He wanted to be the best at everything he ever.
That wouldn't be perhaps somebody with the same last name as Jackson. Okay, my bad. Let's go.
did. They were not at all concerned about the working. We worked all day and all night.
From the moment the Jackson 5 signed to Motown, their fate was sealed. Their dream was being controlled, every lyric, every dollar, every decision. And when they fought back, they learned the hard way just how much power Motown had over them. The Jacksons grew up in a small house in Gary, Indiana, a tough steel town where jobs were scarce and opportunities even scarcer. Joseph and Catherine Jackson, the parents of 9 children, worked hard to provide for their family. Joe worked long hours as a crane operator at a steel mill, while Catherine took care of the children and played the piano in her spare time. Music was always a part of their home. Catherine loved country, gospel, and rhythm and blues. Joe, a former musician himself, had once been in a blues band called the Falcons, though his dreams of making it big never materialized. But when he noticed the natural musical talent of his sons, he saw an opportunity, one that he was determined not to let slip away.
One day our television broke down, and we didn't have anything really to do, like in the morning times. So what we started doing, we started singing, my mother, my brothers, and we started making harmony.
Joe was a strict, disciplined man, and he believed in hard work above all else. When he saw his sons, especially Tito Jackson, messing around with his guitar, he didn't scold them. Instead, he realized they had real talent. He began...
Okay, you know what? I'm going to let it go. He probably did scold them. Then after he scolded them and beat them, then they got back to,
training them with an intensity that would become legendary. Rehearsals were daily,
look at that hair,
and often grueling. If a note was off, if a dance step wasn't perfect, if someone wasn't giving it their all, Joe would push them harder. He wasn't just shaping...
By push, we mean beat. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Band. He was molding a machine built for success.
Those boys, they practice most of the time because while other kids was out there running the streets and playing, they was in there trying to get a song down or something.
The Jackson brothers, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and the youngest Michael started performing around Gary. At first, they played at local talent shows and school events, but word spread quickly. They had something special. Their harmonies were tight, their dance moves were sharp, and Michael, though still a child, had a voice and stage presence that could hold a crowd in awe. They started competing in bigger talent shows in nearby cities. Their breakthrough came when they won a major competition at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, a place where legends were born. It was here that they truly proved they weren't just another kid group. They were stars in the making. By the mid-1960s, they were performing...
It's so funny because I don't think I did a reaction to this video, did I? I don't think so, but it's hilarious because I think during this... Dang, how I get to it? Hold on.
In nearby cities. Their
like the Carol, shout out to the Carol Burnett show. I love the Carol Burnett show. The like I was a TV baby for sure. But I think during this taping there was an actual earthquake, which is hilarious. So it's kind of like that's kind of wild. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Breakthrough came when they won a major competition at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, a place where legends were born. It was here that they truly proved they weren't just another kid group.
We don't have that no more.
They were stars in the making.
Like, we don't have the Apollos and stuff like that.
They were performing across the Midwest, opening for established acts like The Temptations, the O'Jays, and Sam and Dave. They had even recorded a few local singles with a small label called Steeltown Records. Songs like Big Boy and We Don't Have to Be Over 21 showcased their talent, but they weren't enough to launch them into stardom. Joe Jackson knew they...
There's a song called We Don't Have to Be Over 21. Okay, yeah, that's like rough. Okay. All right.
Needed something bigger.
That just sounded sus.
He had his eyes on one label, Motown. At the time, Motown was the most powerful black-owned record label in the country. Founded by Berry Gordy in Detroit, the label was responsible for turning artists like the Supremes, the Temptations, and Stevie Wonder into superstars. It was known as Hitsville, USA, and if you wanted to make it in the music business, Motown was the place to be. But getting into Motown wasn't easy. Berry Gordy was highly selective about who he signed. He had built his label on a strict formula of polished, well-trained artists who could cross over into mainstream audiences. Joe Jackson was relentless. He took his sons to every audition, every showcase, and every industry event he could find. He knocked on doors, made phone calls, and pushed his way into rooms where he wasn't invited. Eventually, through connections and sheer determination, the Jackson 5 landed an audition with Motown in 1968. That audition was a defining moment. In a small studio, the 5 young boys stood in front of Motown executives and performed. And when Michael Jackson started to sing, the room changed. His voice, filled with emotion and power well beyond his years, stunned everyone. He wasn't just a good singer, he was extraordinary.
But I did not want a kids group because I'd had Stevie Wonder and, chaperone teachers, and his mother was really tough.
Berry Gordy wasn't there for the audition, but when he heard the tape, he knew he had something special. He wasted no time signing them to Motown. It was the beginning of a new chapter, not just for the Jacksons, but for Motown itself. Once the Jackson 5 were signed, they entered the world of Motown, a world of discipline, training, and strict control. Motown didn't just sign artists, they shaped them. The label had a legendary system in place that geared its acts into polished performers. Artists were put through rigorous vocal training, choreography sessions, and media coaching. For the Jackson 5, this training was intense. They were coached by some of the best songwriters and producers in the business. The Motown team, including Suzanne DePass and the Corporation, a group of songwriters responsible for some of their biggest hits, worked closely with them. But despite their training, the Jackson 5's raw talent was undeniable. When they finally debuted in 1969 with I Want You Back, it was an instant hit. The song went straight to #1, making them overnight stars. Over the next 2 years, they dominated the charts. ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There all became massive hits. They were the first group in history to have their first 4 singles go to #1.
Wow.
Suddenly, the Jackson 5 were everywhere. They were on television, in magazines.
Like, do you understand how insane that is? The first 4 singles go to #1? You know how difficult it is for a debuting artist or group to even just get on the charts? And the fact that even with the machine behind them, that's all cool, but still, the fact they went back to back to back with #1s, bro. And the competition was real in the field. What was it, 70? Like, the competition was real. And they was doing that. Like, don't talk to me about no other group. Respectfully to all of them. Temptations, OJs, Earth, Wind, and Fire, love all y'alls. Drew Hill, New Edition, I love all y'alls. Most of Boyz II Men for sure. Love y'all. But y'all ain't no Jackson 5, you feel me? Respectfully on the respectfulies.
Performing in sold-out venues across the country. America had never seen anything like them. A group of young, energetic black kids who could sing, dance, and capture an audience like seasoned professionals. Michael, in particular, was becoming the breakout star. His voice, his charisma, his ability to connect with an audience. He had something that couldn't be taught, and the world was taking notice. As much as their rise to fame seemed like a dream come true, it came with a price. The boys were working constantly, recording, touring, rehearsing, and promoting. They barely had time to be kids. Michael especially felt the weight of their success. He was only a child, but he was being treated like an adult. He was expected to handle a level of fame that would be overwhelming for anyone, let alone a child.
He wanted to be the best at everything he ever did. They were not at all concerned about the working. We worked all day and all night. I mean, this kid at 9 meant serious business.
Behind the scenes, Joe Jackson continued to push them hard. He wasn't just their father, he was their manager, their coach, and their biggest critic. He demanded perfection, and he didn't tolerate mistakes. Meanwhile, Motown controlled every aspect of their careers. They didn't write their own songs, they didn't own their music, and they had little say in their creative direction. They were a product of the Motown system, packaged, promoted, and sold to the world. For a time, this formula worked. The Jackson 5 were the biggest thing in music. They had their own cartoon series, a massive fan following, and a place in history as one of the most successful groups of all time. But as they got older, things would begin to change. The same system that had made them famous would soon become a prison. They would start to question their contract, their earnings, and their lack of creative freedom. While the world saw the Jackson 5 as happy, talented kids living their dream, they were actually trapped in one of the worst contracts in music history. You see, when the Jackson 5 signed with Motown, they were just kids, eager to live out their dreams of becoming music stars.
No, where's the Afro? Wait a minute, what was that?
In one of the worst contracts in music history. You see, when the Jackson 5 signed with Motown, they were just kids, eager to live out their dreams of becoming music stars.
Bro, what was that? Man, when I tell you, I'm going to search heaven and earth for finding, like, it was on YouTube. I should have just found a way to grab it when I could. God dang it. But the variety show, The Jacksons, like, I got to search heaven and earth to find that, bro. Because when I tell you there are gems on there, and I'm only seeing snippets of it, I know it was on fire. I wish I could just go to Amazon, buy it off of there. But we're going to figure something out, bro. I'm telling you. I got to. But yeah, this is crazy.
Stars. But the reality of the music business, especially the way Motown operated, was far from the dream they imagined. Their father, Joe Jackson, negotiated the deal. But Berry Gordy and Motown had all the power. And for Gordy, the Jackson 5 weren't just a talented group of kids. They were a gold mine. Motown had a system in place that allowed it to control every aspect of an artist's career. The label was built on structure, discipline, and a strict contract system that benefited the company more than the artists. This worked for Motown in the past with acts like the Supremes, the Temptations, and Marvin Gaye. But the Jackson 5 situation was even more extreme. They weren't just employees of Motown. They were completely owned by the label. One of the biggest issues was that the Jackson 5 didn't own their own music. Everything they recorded belonged to Motown, which meant that even though they were selling millions of records, most of the money went straight into Motown's pockets. At first, the brothers didn't fully understand what this meant. They were too busy performing, recording, and enjoying their fame. But as they got older, they realized just how much control Motown had over their careers and how little they were getting in return. The royalty rate they received was shockingly low. Only 2.7% of their record sales actually went to them.
What?
That means if their music...
Nah, fam. No way. Only 2 point what went to them? Hold on, wait a minute. The Jackson earned a very low 2 point... That's crazy. 2.8 of their record sales? So, what? And Epic Records offered them a royalty rate that was 10 times higher than what they was receiving at Motown. And the fact that they did that when they were making them so much money with all those number ones and working the way they did, I can't believe that. That's crazy. They were robbing y'all. Damn. That's crazy. I know it was that bad. 2.8. Look, I should... it's been past what happened. Yeah, that's crazy.
They realized just how much control Motown had over their careers and
Hot
how
Dollar
little
Fire
they
off
were
somebody.
getting in return. The royalty rate they received was shockingly low. Only 2.7% of their record sales actually went to them. That means if their music made $1 million, they only received $27,000. And that was split between all 5 brothers. And that was before taxes, management fees, and the cost of things like costumes, travel, and living expenses. Meanwhile, Berry Gordy and Motown were making millions. The Jackson 5 were topping the charts, selling out concerts, and becoming one of the most successful acts.
I like them jackets. I like that hat tee though. I like that sweater. I like that sweater, Jermaine. Ooh, I like that jacket. Ooh.
In the world, but financially, they weren't seeing the rewards. The money they did receive barely reflected their level of success. And it wasn't just about the money. Motown controlled everything about their image, their music, and their future. The Jackson 5 weren't allowed to write their own songs or choose what they recorded. Every decision about their career was made by Motown executives, who saw them as a business product rather than artists. As the years went by, the tension between the Jackson 5 and Motown grew. They wanted more creative freedom. They wanted to write their own songs. And most importantly, they wanted to be fairly paid for their work. But for Motown, that wasn't part of the deal. Berry Gordy had built a system where the artists worked for the label, not the other way around. This would eventually lead to the Jackson 5 making a bold decision to leave Motown and take control of their careers. But breaking away from the label that made them famous wasn't going to be easy. By 1975, things reached a breaking point. The Jackson 5 knew they couldn't stay at Motown forever, but leaving wasn't simple. Motown owned their name, meaning they couldn't even call themselves the Jackson 5 if they left.
That's wild.
In 1976, the group
standard.
officially left Motown and signed a new deal with Epic Records.
Columbia Records, we want to sell twice as many records. We want to do the things that we've dreamed of.
Their new deal with Epic Records gave them the freedom they had been looking for.
This whole time, I just thought they called themselves the Jacksons because there was Randy in the group. So it's no longer the Jackson 5. But you're telling me that they called themselves the Jacksons because when he went over to Epic, they couldn't no longer call themselves the Jackson 5? I mean, actually, I kind of like it better that they call themselves the Jacksons. That's actually kind of... The Jackson 5 just feels just not old, but it just... The Jacksons feel like, okay, we grown now. That's just me. So, but I didn't know they didn't even own the name, own nothing. Damn. I did not know this.
They couldn't stay at Motown forever, but leaving wasn't simple. Motown owned their name, meaning they couldn't even call themselves the Jackson 5 if they left. In 1976, the group officially left Motown and signed a new deal with Epic Records.
Columbia Records, we want to sell twice as many records. We want to do the things that we've dreamed of.
Their new deal with Epic Records gave them the freedom they had been looking for. Unlike at Motown, they could now write and produce their own songs. This was a huge step forward, especially for Michael and his older brothers, who wanted to prove they could succeed on their own terms. Their first album under Epic, simply titled The Jacksons, was released in 1976. It was followed by Goin' Places in 1977, but it wasn't until 1978's Destiny that they really hit their stride. This album featured songs they had written themselves, like Blame It on the Boogie and Shake Your Body Down to the Ground, proving they could thrive without Motown's guidance. However, there was one major loss. Jermaine Jackson stayed behind at Motown.
Jermaine, bro, it's okay just to be bald, dog. Like, you ain't gotta do all that, bro. It's okay. That's crazy.
Since he was married to Berry Gordy's daughter Hazel, he chose loyalty to the family over his brothers. In his place, the youngest Jackson brother, Randy Jackson, officially became a part of the group. By 1980, Michael Jackson was no longer the little boy who took orders from Motown. He had grown into a serious artist, and more importantly, a businessman who understood his worth. Even though he and his brothers had left Motown for Epic Records in 1976, there was still unfinished business. Motown owed Michael money. For years, Michael had worked tirelessly, recording music, touring, and making the label millions. But like many artists at Motown, he wasn't seeing the money he deserved. His early solo work, including songs like Gotta Be There and Ben, had been huge successes. Yet, when he looked at his earnings, something wasn't adding up. That's when he decided to take action. In 1980, Michael Jackson sued Motown for unpaid royalties. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was making it clear that he wouldn't be taken advantage of.
Like, did they say any of this in the doc of Journey from Motown to, I forget what it was called. It's like Journey to Motown or something. To Off the Wall. Like, did they mention any of this, or was it just sleep? Like, I didn't know he sued Motown. A lawsuit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court stemmed from 1980 agreement where Motown allegedly failed to pay royalties for Jackson's pre-1976 recordings. Wow. I was trying to he went to the Motown 25 after all this. I was trying he went to Motown. No wonder Barry was like, nah, we good off Michael and them. I'm surprised he went now. That's crazy. Okay.
Of anymore. The lawsuit was a bold move, considering Berry Gordy had been like a mentor to him. But at this point, Michael wasn't looking for approval. He wanted what was his. Berry Gordy denied the accusations, but that didn't change the reality. Michael had outgrown Motown. He was no longer the child star that Motown had controlled. He was now stepping into his power, demanding fairness, and preparing for the next phase of his career. This lawsuit was just the beginning. In a few years, Michael would release Thriller, the best-selling album of all time, proving that he didn't need Motown to succeed. In fact, he would become bigger than Motown itself. By the early 1980s, Michael Jackson had become the biggest pop star on the planet. His album Off the Wall had been a massive success, proving that he didn't need Motown to thrive. But
how mad do you think Motown was after seeing Michael have the greatest selling album basically back to back? Like, how mad do you think they were that it wasn't on their label? Like, I know they had to be pissed. Like, how damn. You just want to stay like 3 more years, bro. We could have got that. But then again, we might not. Which I'm going to talk about at the end. But I know Michael, I know they just saying, oh, they sued him. I know Michael, that probably tore him up to do that. Like, that's the one aspect I wish, I don't know if there's an interview out there I could find of him talking about that. Probably not. But I know it had to tear him up to have to sue Motown. Because Motown still did make him a mega superstar. Like, for real. Like, so, it taught him a lot. So I know they had to tear him up to sue Motown, but he had to do what he had to do, man. So I just had to bring that up because I know they're not really talking about that, but just knowing Michael, I know they had to mess with him. But yeah, I know Motown to be pissed when they saw the Thriller numbers.
The real turning point was Thriller, the album that would go on to break records and redefine the music industry. At this point, Motown was struggling to stay relevant. The label that once dominated the charts was now competing with new sounds and artists who had more creative freedom. Meanwhile, Michael was soaring to new heights, and Motown saw an opportunity. Bring him back, at least for one night. That opportunity came in 1983 with the Motown 25. Yesterday, Today, Forever TV Special. Berry Gordy put together a celebration of Motown's legacy, reuniting some of its biggest stars. And of course, no Motown tribute would be complete without the Jacksons.
But then again, I'm so jaded. I'm like, if you're doing a concert and it's being televised, would you not want the highest selling artist like ever to do the show? So as much as they probably mad at Michael and the Jacksons for leaving them but then getting sued, it's like, well, it's going to do great for our ratings and everything. And I do think they still had a genuine love for them. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, why would you not want Michael? Like, he wound up giving you the greatest performance, one of the greatest performances of all time. Like a moment that will live forever. So I just want a slow yes instead of a fast no. Shout out to Suzanne, bro. Shout out to Suzanne, dog.
Behind the scenes, this wasn't just about celebrating history. Motown wanted Michael back. Berry Gordy knew what Michael had become. Thriller was already changing the industry, and Michael was bigger than Motown itself. The Jacksons agreed to perform for the special, but the real highlight of the night wasn't the group reunion. It was Michael's solo moment. That's when he performed Billie Jean for the first time on television. The sparkly jacket, the single white glove, and most importantly, the debut of the moonwalk. This was the performance that would define his career. And Motown? They had nothing to do with it. It was his moment, not theirs. The performance stole the entire show, and it made one thing crystal clear. Michael Jackson had outgrown Motown. This wasn't a comeback for him, it was a farewell. Michael was always grateful for what Motown had done for him and his brothers. It gave them a start, put them on the map, and made them household names. But it also controlled them, underpaid them, and tried to hold them back. When they first signed with Motown as kids, they had no idea what kind of contract they were locked into. They made millions for the label, but took home barely a fraction of that. And when they wanted to grow artistically, they were denied. Motown's system worked in the 60s and early 70s, but by the time Michael reached adulthood, the music industry was changing. Artists wanted more control, and record labels couldn't operate
Control! Control!
they had in the past. But Motown tried to keep doing business the old way, and that's why they lost the Jacksons. Michael knew he had to leave in order to grow. He had spent years under Motown's control, and even after moving to Epic Records, the label still tried to hold on to him. The 1980 lawsuit over unpaid royalties showed just how deep the issue went. Michael had given them so much, and yet they still owed him money. But in the end, he won. The Jacksons continued to thrive in their own way. As for Motown, it never had another act like them again. Motown may have tried to hold them down, but the Jacksons were destined for greater heights. But even though the Jacksons were thriving, there was no denying that Michael was starting to outshine the group. He had already shown the world his potential with Off the Wall, his first solo album with Epic, and it was clear he was headed for superstardom. During the late 70s and early 80s, Michael's solo career exploded. Off the Wall was a major hit, but it was Thriller in 1982 that changed everything. The album shattered records, won 8 Grammys, and turned Michael into the biggest star on the planet. While Michael was reaching new heights, the Jacksons were still doing well as a group. Their 1980 album Triumph was another success, featuring hits like Can You Feel It and Lovely One. But by now, it was becoming clear that Michael's future was bigger than the group. In 1984, the Jacksons embarked on the Victory Tour, their biggest and most expensive tour ever. The tour was supposed to be a huge celebration, especially since it came right after Thriller's success. However, it quickly became clear that this wasn't about the Jacksons. It was about Michael. Fans weren't coming to see the group. They were coming to see Michael perform his solo hits.
Okay, we ain't gonna do this. We ain't gonna do the Jackson 5 like that now. Come on. Like, yeah, they want to see Michael, but they still had love for the Jacksons. I could put money on it. I can't speak for everyone, but I'm sure they still had love for the Jacksons now. We ain't gonna downplay the brothers, the jungle, the brothers. What was that, buddy? What? My bad. Shout out to native tongues. I got music I need. The jungle, the brothers. De La Soul. I'm sorry. But yeah, we're not gonna downplay the brothers like that, dog. Like, come on, son. Yeah, we're not gonna do that. Yeah, Michael was really him, but yeah, like they wanted to see the brothers too. Just want to see Michael more, but yeah.
He was the main attraction, and the media focused on him more than the band as a whole. Tensions grew within the group, especially because of financial disputes. Michael felt the tour was being mismanaged, and that the focus should have been on charity.
I do not like this interview. Like, Michael, if you don't eat something, bro. I hate this Diane Sawyer interview.
Rather than personal profit.
Not Diane Sawyer, what am I talking about? It was, it Barbara Walters? Anyway,
By the end of the Victory Tour, Michael had had enough. At the final show, he shocked the audience by announcing his departure from the Jacksons on stage. The moment was unplanned, and even his brothers didn't see it coming. After Michael left, the Jacksons tried to continue, but things were never...
like, this is our last time on tour. Like, it's just a band that's like, do. And the brother's just like, what did nigga just say? Like, what? He's like, this is Michael all giddy as shit. He's like, yeah, this is the last time we're going to perform. Like, what? Michael said, I'm done with y'all. I love y'all, but peace out, bro. Like, bro, I gotta find that video, because that's funny as hell to me. Because, you know, the brother was like, what? Oh, okay.
The same. They released one last album, 2300 Jackson Street, in 1989. But it didn't make much of an impact. Without Michael, the group lost its star power. Eventually, the remaining brothers went their separate ways. Some pursued solo careers. Others stepped away from music. While they occasionally reunited for special events, the Jacksons as a group never regained their former glory. Their story didn't end with Motown. It continued for over a decade. But in the end, the Jacksons' post-Motown journey was really about Michael's rise to superstardom. He had outgrown the group, just like they had outgrown Motown. And while the Jacksons left a lasting legacy, it was Michael who would go on to change music forever. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.
Wow, that's a great... I never thought of that. I can't... He outgrown... What's that one? There you go. I just love that look. But he outgrew his brothers just like the Jacksons outgrew Motown. That's a crazy analogy, but that's true. Wow. Okay, so I got 2 questions for y'all. Let's see if y'all made it all the way to the end of this video. 2 questions. I want to pose it. 1, how different do you think not only the Jacksons would have been, but Michael Jackson's career would have been had he stayed on Motown? To me, Motown was like going to grade school 1 through 12. Then going to Epic was like college, which is kind of ironic because I think he was the age to where you would graduate when he left Motown. Then when he was with Epic, he was of college age. But so that's the first thing. How different do you think their careers would have been had they stayed on Motown? And how different Michael would have been had he stayed on Motown? How different his sound would have been? 2, they talked about Destiny. They talked about Triumph. I've been wanting to know this for the longest. What is the best Jackson 5 album? Is it Destiny or is it Triumph? We're going to eventually get to the bottom of it. I want to put that out there, but like, comment, subscribe, share all the things are the things. Ain't got to go home. Do got to get a step in. Peace.
I know gold is not in her. She's a